$787 billion, and the administration claims, and I have no reason to debate their claim that they saved or created 3 million jobs. My fourth grade teacher said you could lop off the zeros when you're doing the long division. So 787 billion divided by 3 million, so take off the 6 zeros at the end. That's 787,000 divided by 3. It's about $260,000 a job. You all serve small business. If you gave a $260,000 loan to a small business in town, do you think they could create more than one job? They got the wrong idea. They're spending money we don't have and borrowing it from people who don't like us very much. And that has to stop. So that's one of the reasons I'm running for the Senate. So I do believe that we can be much more fiscally responsible than we are today, and we've done it before. Sir?
I have a philosophical question for you. You made a statement that you were basically against caps when you identified that you were not in favor of capping payday lending, correct? So then philosophically, would you also say that you're against a cap for business lending for credit unions?
Well, and that's why I pointed you to this letter.
Right, and I've read the letter, and things have changed. But I want to know philosophically how you feel about a cap on business lending from credit unions.
Credit unions are regulated differently and serve a different customer base. If we want to say, all right, it's all Moxnix, we're going to treat everybody the same. Credit unions are credit unions and small banks, community banks are all going to be regulated the same, treated the same, serve everybody the same, have the same limits, and so on. I'm okay with that. Let's do away with the distinction and treat everybody the same. But I don't think that's what you want. I think that credit unions are intended and came from a world where it's really about small consumer savings and lending. I don't think you want all the burden that comes along with being a large regulated financial kind of institution. So I don't, I guess my frank answer is only my mother can have it both ways, So I think you need to decide who you want to be, and then we'll treat you as who you want to be. Credit unions were not set up principally to be lenders to small business. They're more consumer oriented, and that's the way they're treated both in law and in the community. And so those were my concerns.
And yet, we continue to loan to entities like Los Poblados, who is expanding their facilities, Pardo Salon, and I'm sure that Rio Grande can identify small businesses that have come to them for loans as well. And many of the big banks are not interested in doing what they call small loans, what a small business person would call a pretty good size loan.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the other realities and why this exemption is in there, and to say, all right, a credit union can have a certain amount of its lending that goes towards small business, is because so many small business owners are like, I started my business in the upstairs of our house. I then managed to hire some people and grow that business, move out of the house and do those. And we weren't a capital-intensive business, although it really did tick me off one day. We bought new computers for the whole office. You get to the end of the tax year and they tax it. What is this? I don't, like you still have the money in your account or something. So it's more for, it seems to me, that's where the gray comes in, where we're loaning to are the small businesses, the micro businesses that are much more like your customer base than Don Chalmers Ford or something. And so there is an area of gray there, which I think is why that exemption is there to say, all right, up to a certain amount. But I think you can also see that very quickly you could end up with a credit union that really is almost entirely focused on business loans rather than what credit unions are for. And if that's what you want to be, then I think you should be largely regulated and treated like a community bank.
Thank you.
Sir.
First, I want to say thank you for coming, Ms. Wilson.
Yes, sir.
I'm Larry Lujan. I met you earlier. I run a small credit union in Santa Fe, and probably a large percentage of our members are school employees, public schools. We have some private schools, and I just wanted to get some of your thoughts on public schools and some of the graduation rates and what you can do to help.
Yeah. Most of the education decisions we make are made at the state and local level, and I think that's the right thing. I actually do support continued federal support and aid to education, and New Mexico disproportionately benefits from that because we have a large number of children who are growing up in poverty, which is the largest federal program. We have a large number of children who don't speak English as a first language, and the federal government does help with funds for those things. But I want the decisions about how that money is used to be made by somebody who knows your child's name. And so local decision making, and then look at the results. Now, I supported No Child Left Behind. I thought it needed to be tweaked and upgraded and revised probably 6 or 7 years ago now. And now they're just kind of moving around it and doing waivers to it and things. But the concept is the right one, which is to say, let's look at results. Let's stop the federal government micromanaging process and saying, you know, we've got 400 different accounts here and we put so much money in the account for computer training and so much money in the account for additional teacher training, and you can't manage them. Let's look at the intent, which is to narrow the gap between the rich kids and the poor kids, which is to make sure kids are prepared for 21st century workplace and citizenship. And look at the results, not micromanage the process from Washington, D.C. I personally believe that if you have involved parents and a well-trained teacher, you are halfway there to having a great public school. And we need to have high expectations for our children. Because with a good education and a strong work ethic, you can make it in America. And I say that as you know, the first person in my family to go to college, and my grandparents came here with nothing, and they lived it. So I think you can make it in America with a good education and a strong work ethic. Yes, sir.
Again, thank you for coming in. I second that. My question is about regulation. In the prior to Bill Clinton leaving office, he signed legislation that was sponsored by, it was bipartisan, introduced by Senator Phil Gramm, but it had bipartisan support to repeal Glass-Steagall,
Yeah.
which kind of took down this wall between investment banks, commercial banks, and it became very complicated for a regulator to really understand the risk and the complexity inherent in some of these large banks. I personally think some of our large banks may be too big. And even though I talk about them being, we're not going to have too big to fail, we still have even bigger banks now than we did even 4 years ago. Whenever something goes wrong in the financial markets, credit unions get dragged through the mud too, in a couple of ways. One of them is access to capital markets, and the other is regulation. Everybody wanted to fix things post 2007, 2008 because of all the collapse we had in the financial markets. And I guess that's all background for the question, which is, would you support tweaking, amending, replacing Dodd-Frank? Would you like to see the big banks maybe have a different structure 5 to 10 years from now? Or do you have a level of comfort with large banks as they are and think that the regulation and the CFPB and other things coming out will really fix things, or just add another layer of complexity for small credit unions to have to deal with?
With respect to Dodd-Frank, should it be repealed or replaced? Yes. It is one of the biggest regulatory nightmares and drags on our economic growth. Yeah. I spent a lot of time over the last 11 months, and in every county in the state, meeting with a lot of small business people, and almost in every small town you go to, whoever's running the bank is one of the leaders of the community. And that's just the way it is. Whether you're Jay Jenkins in Carlsbad or David Hale in Tucumcari, and all of them are being crushed by the new regulatory requirements from Dodd-Frank that they cannot even possibly understand. And yet they're being held accountable for it. Citizens Bank in Tucumcari has stopped doing loans to they're largely an ag little bank, do ag loans, but some of their customers, you know, they also do their home loans.